On the Woodpecker this time, I'll show you how I built the stand for my home theater system. My home theater equipment sits inside an old cabinet from the 80s, which is not even made of real wood. This thing is not suitable for my needs anymore. I even had to add a wood plank to support my home theater amplifier. For this project, I'm going to do something unusual. I'll buy a nice mahogany board of 8/4, 15 inches wide by 10 feet long. I mark it and I cut it. It's at this moment that something pops up in the back of my head, warning me that it's not a good idea to cut it right now. Instead, I go to the computer, and with the help of the big print program from woodgears.ca, I print the full-size plan. I scotch tape all the sheets together so I can see it full size. Lucky for me, because it fails the ultimate test. This time, I take proper measurements. I draw the new placement on the sheets and I redraw the support. I reprint it, and now I'm ready to start for real. This time, I start by printing the patterns and I stick them on a piece of plywood. I adjust the rib fence at 3 inches and cut the patterns from the plywood. With the pattern of the horizontal support, I cut the shoulders on both sides. I remove the rest, so I end up with the tenon. Then, I cut the patterns on the bandsaw. I finish by filing them to my line. I don't want any surprises, so I even print a cut list like you see in the magazines. Now I can cut the first piece from the board. It's really exhausting to cut this piece. I cut the other with my circular saw on a piece of styrofoam. So that both sides of the board are supported after the cut. With a guide, I rip each board in half, but the way the base is built prevents me from cutting right through. I finish the cut with the bandsaw. Then, I pass one side on the jointer. The problem is, the board is wider than my jointer, so I have to finish the last part by hand. I just want it straight enough to be able to pass it through the thickness planner. When both faces are straight, I put one side square on the jointer again. I cut the last side on the table saw. Before going any further, I varnish all the patterns. With varnish, the double stick tape sticks better and lasts longer. Then I cut all the pieces at 3.5 inches wide. Then I cut them to length. Here are all the cut pieces. I just need to make all the joints on them. For the tenons, I'm using my paddle router. I just clamp the piece and I cut the tenon. These 3 pieces will support the shelves. Now I can cut the tenon for the vertical support. It's here that I noticed that I have a problem. Even with my cut list, I made a mistake. The rest of the pieces should have been 3 inches wide, not 3.5. Now that all the pieces are the right width, I can make the tenons on the 2 vertical support. Finally, all the pieces have their tenons. I just need to pick out the mess that the panel router left everywhere. And I really deserve a break. After refreshing myself, I change tools. I use my slot mortising machine. It's really easy to set up a mortise on this machine. I start by finding the height of the mortise, then the width of it, and I lock everything. After that, I can make the mortises for the base. When I'm done with the base, using my plans, I mark the placement of the vertical support mortises. The base for my panther ruler and the slot mortising machine is mobile, so I clamp it to my workbench. Secured this way, I can use a stop clamped to my workbench too, so both pieces will have their mortises at the same place. For the 3 back mortises, I need to cramp up the router 19.5 turns on one support only, so that both supports will have their mortises in the back. Cleaning up after the mortises is way easier. I drill a shallow hole on each horizontal support to receive a magnet. They will hold the shells in place. I hope I won't have any surprises in the future. The panther rotor patterns has left some little ends that I need to cut off. I mark the shape of the horizontal support so I can cut 2 supports from one piece. I stick the pattern on them and remove the rest with the router. When all supports are like the pattern, I sand them to remove the router bit marks. To be able to glue both sides the same, I made a clamping pattern. Each horizontal support will be tied to the notch on the black side. It's time to glue all the supports. I put glue inside the mortises and on the tenons, and finally I put everything together. Now I can clamp them using the clamping pattern. I must be careful to check for squareness. I just need to wait for the glue to dry. Now I mark the base with its pattern and I cut it on the bandsaw. With double stick tape, I glue the pattern on the base and I bring it to the router. To avoid cutting against the grain, I lower the bit so I can ride on the top bearing. I route the rest with the pattern on top. I sand the corner round. Again, I remove the router bit marks by sanding them. After the glue is dry, I remove the clamps and I glue the base to the sides. Then I assemble each side. With clamps, I square the base and I wait for the glue to dry. When it's dry, I sand everything. The top support is not level with the back, so I just plane it flush. Then I sand it. Unfortunately, I have some bad joints that I need to hide. I just sand some mahogany leftovers and I collect the dust from the pouch of my sander. and I put it in a small container. In a jar, I put 2 spoons of lacquer, add some dust, and I mix it. I use this paste to fill up the cracks. When this mixture is dry, I sand those parts again. I round over the edge of the 2 sides. I sand the tips by hand. I round over the edges of the back supports too. After that, I can finally glue all the pieces together. After spreading the glue on the mortises and the tenon, I put them together. After putting glue on all the rest of the tenons and inside the mortises of the other side, I put everything together. To keep the same width from the front to the back, I put some sticks that I made between the support. Then, I put some weight on it. When the glue is dry, I sand everything flush. And I round over the back edges. I can finally start the shelves. I used 3 of my dad's mahogany panels. They're in bad shape. They had several coats of paint. My wife stripped 3 dozen of them. To use them, I need to cut all the damaged side and pass them through the drum sander. When all the panels are sanded, I mark the bad spots and I cut them. I rip another one in half. I recut one half in several parts. Now that I have all the pieces for the 4 shelves, I can glue them. Here they are drying. When the glue is dry, I pass them through the drum sander again, so they'll have a uniform thickness. I cut the big panel, so it will be more manageable. I rip all the shelves to their depth. I place the stop on my crosscut sled, and I cut the shelves to their width. Here I notice that I misread my own plan. When I cut the big panel to a manageable size, I cut it too short. I'll get another panel which I'll sand like the others, and I will cut it right this time. When all the shelves are cut, I mark them. There are several screw holes on the shelves that I fill with a lacquer stick. While the lacquer cools down, I take the opportunity to mark a curve on the front corner of the shelves. To mark the placement of the shelf magnet, I cut some roofing nails. I glue them in the center of each magnet, which I put inside the holes. I put the shelf at its place on the nail and apply pressure on the shelf to mark the wood. I verify if I can clearly see the marks before I drill the holes. Then I sand the corners round. I put the same round over on the shelves that I did previously on the stand. It's time to sand the shelves. I can finally use my new sander that I got as a birthday present. I dreamt of that sander since I sanded the tack box last winter. The sides and the roundover are sanded by hand. The last sanding is done by hand. I dust off everything with compressed air. Then I wash everything with alcohol. By the way, if you leave a panel like this in the sun, it will cut, and you might swear a little. I turn them to dry on the other side, and when they're flat again, I put several coats of lacquer. Between the third and the fourth coat, I rub everything with steel wool. When the finish is dry, I mark where I'll put the gripper pads underneath the stand. I drill holes for the screws and I screw the pads. Now I need to glue the magnets inside their holes. I use epoxy glue and I make it thicker with silica powder. When this is well mixed, I put a small blob inside each hole, one shelf at a time, and I insert the magnet, taking care to put it flush with the support. When all the arms of the support are done, I do the same thing with each shelf, but each magnet is glued with the reverse polarity from the stand. Now, the stand is ready to be assembled and to receive all my home theater equipment. After a joyful hour of unraveling and connecting wires, I'm ready to watch my favorite show. Where was I? Yes. Watching my favorite show. Thank you for watching and see you next time for another episode of the Woodpecker.